In my mind, if you tell the customer what the reality is, they're actually gonna respect you way more and they're gonna like feel that honesty. So my answer to that question would be like, to be honest, like that's not a targeted area where we treat. So it might help. You'll probably still see some ants down by the mailbox realistically, but ultimately like what we want is for those guys to not be like nesting, breeding, and colonizing like up close to the home. That way you never have those ants like in the garage or like, right? And it's totally about how you say it. Like you can make it a win regardless. I think it's just such like a bang decision. And obviously like there's way more questions that are asked. Is it a contract? Is there a cancellation fee?
Welcome everybody out to the D2D podcast with the Golden Door Deep Dive segment where I, your host Roz, pick the brains of all the top performers, see what makes them tick. Every Golden Door winner this year ideally is on this podcast, and we are blessed to have with us today Mr. Jake Shear from the pest control space, clearing $650 in revenue this year. How many accounts did that turn into?
It was 735.
So that's no walk in the park right there.
Yeah, it was great.
You're sprinting in the park.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, man. Well, dude, and this was your 5th summer.
Right.
So, dude, just like walk me through your path. Like, how'd you get in the industry? What's been your progression like?
Yeah, for sure. So I ended up going to BYU for college. Got up there.
Go Cougs.
My first semester, go Cougs, man. So first semester, I'm up there and just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, obviously. One of my friends from high school, she actually married a guy named Calvin Escobedo, who's done really well in pest control. And he had been doing it for a couple of years. So she basically introduced me and some of my best friends from high school to him. And we got roped into Greenix that way. So first year with Greenix out in Philly, had a good experience, sold about 100K, made decent money for my first year. I was stoked, right? Like coming back from the mission, you're broke, right? You don't really know what you're doing. So yeah, that was cool. Second year, COVID summer, Chicago, Greenix, did about 120K. So I didn't get too much better. Didn't take it super seriously. Didn't train in the off season. Going into the third summer is when the grit was created. And that's when I got way more bought in. Decided that I was going to go all in. I was going to train. I was going to recruit. I'd seen my second summer, one of my best friends, Easton Bunker, make about triple what I had. And I was like, oh, wow. Like I really like passed up a really good opportunity there. And I didn't want to let that happen again. So third year, sold 500 accounts, 335K. And I had like 5, 6, 7 guys somewhere around there. And then fourth year was Pittsburgh. First time running a team solo, had about 20 guys on the team, and I actually dropped in production a little bit. I sold like 290K, and then this last year just went full on in like a lot of the guys from the grit did, and full sent it.
Yeah, so the buy-in progression has been just gradual for you too.
100%. Yeah.
So I kind of want to speak to, you didn't see a ton of massive growth between your years 1 and 2.
Yeah.
What do you think was the main reason for that? Was that mainly buy-in, or what did that look like?
Yeah, I think there were like several contributing factors. I think it was a lack of buy-in. It was a lack of like vision, and also just complacency. Like I was good with how much money I'd made my first year. Obviously, everyone like wants to make more money, but I wasn't really willing to pay the price for it my second year. So I think, yeah, just that lack of like determination and willingness to sacrifice like for the end goal. And yeah, I think I just didn't have like that mentality where when things are going hard, you like push back yet. And I think that's something I've been able to develop over the years. It was more like things are going hard. Okay, like what's going on, and like what are my circumstances that I can blame for like my failures and like my lack of success.
What's up, everybody? Door to Door Con 7's coming up January 25th through the 27th in Salt Lake City, Utah. If you have not got your ticket, you're going to miss out on the industry's leading event with vendors over 100, with over 40 speakers on recruiting, sales, finance, growing your business, scaling. And we've had over 3,000 attendees there last year, and this year is going to be bigger and better with Lance Armstrong, Sean White, Kent Clothier, myself, and so many really cool people to network with the best. We have more Golden Door winners this year. We have more coming at you, and I don't think you're going to want to miss it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was talking about this with someone the other day, and that is a lot of guys get out there, and it's like they don't have anything to lose, but they also don't have anything to gain either. So it's like they're kind of happy just making $1,000 a week or $1,000 a month or something like that, where it's like they don't feel the drive to like truly be like the best that they can be, just because in the name of like, oh, well, like, if I crash and burn, I got a place with mom and dad I can go be at, like, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, but if I do like wildly successful, like I don't really need to have like hundreds of thousands of dollars because I'm very comfortable.
Yeah, you still have plan B to fall back on.
Yeah, and I think that is a massive trap people fall into, is the trap of comfort and complacency.
100%.
So what would you say to maybe like a year two vet that, they just finished their summer, they didn't experience that much growth, and they're really caught up in that comfort and complacency?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's something you kind of have to find within yourself. Like, I feel like it's kind of a journey that everyone has to go on to figure out like what they really want, right? And a lot of times that complacency just comes from not having vision of what you really do want in your life and what your dreams and visions consist of, right? So a lot of that has to do with coming in terms with what you want, what it's going to take, right? And like what you have to be willing to sacrifice. And obviously if you're not willing to sacrifice it at the end of the day, like you're just not going to, like your dreams are never going to come to fruition. And yeah, it just comes to kind of like a fork in the road where you decide if you want that or not. And I think a lot of people, I think that it's typical to have complacency in life. I think most people do. A lot of people just start to realize like, wow, like I really want my life to look different. And that's when you take that other fork in the road and you decide, to cut the check that, or of whatever it's going to cost to pay the price to get on the right path to, hit your dreams, like achieve that vision that you have in mind for yourself.
Yeah. And I love that principle of like sacrifice, with the bigger the sacrifice, the bigger the power that comes into your life.
Yeah.
What does that sacrifice, what do you think that looks like for most of these guys?
As far as specifically door to door?
Yeah. What do they need to sacrifice?
There's a lot. It totally depends on the person, right? But for me, a lot of it was just comfort. A lot of it was, just like complacency, like letting myself blame my circumstances or like external like forces, whatever it is, for my situations, and just taking full accountability for all of my results, for everything that happens wherever I was at. I think just taking full accountability just makes a huge difference in that.
Yeah, accountability is truly, especially like keeping accountable to yourself.
Oh yeah.
Because that's where confidence comes from, is keeping promises you make with yourself.
Yeah.
Like we've all heard it before.
Yeah, you build on
it. Because if you mistrust yourself, then how are you ever going to believe that you're going to go out and do something big? So now let's kind of dive into like the summer, this past summer. Remind me where you were.
So I was in Western Michigan, Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids, Michigan. What's the market like there?
It's unique in the sense that it was a really new market about 4 years ago. Three-ish years ago. The only company that had knocked it was Greenix, and pest control was brand new, and it was very ideal for people knocking it because it is pretty buggy. Aptiv came in, Proof came in, and then EcoShield came in this last year. So it's kind of a shock to like those Midwestern people that are super nice. Normally, like I had knocked there for a month 2 years ago, and they open the door and they're like, "Oh, what's up, man? Like, what's going on? Oh, pest control, right?" Now it's like, dude, you're like and they've been knocked like 3 times. They think it's like the end of the world, right? So it's like, dude, you're like the 8th guy here. Like, what are we talking about? Right. So it's changed quite a bit. But ultimately, like that's where most markets are at this point. Like there's a lot of
for
teams.
sure. Saturations everywhere.
Yeah. But I love it out there. Like it's super pretty. There's tons of lakes. So like I love wakeboarding. I love being on the water. So you knock a lot of lake homes. It's really pretty. It's really conservative. People are really nice, friendly for the most part.
That's cool. That's cool. So let's talk about market saturation. And this is something we've talked about in other podcasts before. But when you do knock that door, because a lot of people do have that mental block of like, oh, I don't want to bother this person. I don't want to be the 8th guy. If they haven't bought from these other guys, then why would they buy from me? What's the biggest hack to overcome that mindset?
Yeah, it's just flipping your mindset and just craving the switch over. And I think that's a huge reason that I was able to level up this year. I had that exact mentality for probably, my first couple years, even probably up until last year, 4 years deep. And I'm just like, oh, I hate to bother this person if they've been knocked already. And especially if they've already signed up this year. Like, why would I put them through the hassle of switching pest control companies? Like, it's not going to make that big of a difference for them. Like, pest control is pest control. And like, yeah, what's the point? It's just a waste of their time, right? Where this year just totally flipped the script. I crave switchovers more than anything now. It's so funny. Like my mentality knocking a door is especially if they signed up this year, it's like, oh, if, a first or second year, like I'm 5 years deep, sign this person up, like there's no shot I don't, right? And just having that confidence, almost like delusional confidence, that if they answer the door and they say that they signed up with someone, at any point last year, this year, 3 years ago, I'm for sure getting that sale. And I almost like just count those sales before I even go into the day as like a done deal, right? It's like if I go into a door or into a neighborhood and one of my first doors, it's like, oh yeah, company XYZ was here last week or, 3 weeks ago. I'm like, cool, this is at least like 5 today. Like I hope, right? like I hope they did well. Because ultimately, like it just gives me more confidence that there's a need that people have, and I believe that I'm just good enough at sales that I'm going to persuade them to sign up for my pest control instead of theirs.
Which, dude, that's like the coolest mindset shift you could ever have in sales. That's an important mindset shift that you could ever have because, again, like take your first year, $100,000 in revenue. You're scared to knock on the door that everyone's talked to. You're scared to switch over. But when you switched your mentality to, if they bought pest control, they value it.
Yeah.
And I just have to go in and show them why I'm better. And that's it.
Yep.
So I love that so much of like, EcoShield was here. And you immediately are like, oh, I've got this.
Yeah.
Like this is my neighborhood.
And the cool thing about sales is I don't think it really matters what your service consists of, right? The cool thing about sales is, and it's with 100% integrity as well, which is what I love. Like I never lie on the doors, and that's something I pride myself in. But it's being able to come at the angle where that customer is most likely to see value in what you're having to offer versus what they already have, right? And I really don't think it matters what service you're offering versus what they have. It's just more about your ability to sell. And that's something I crave this year as well, is just figuring that out, actually leveling up in my sales ability, being able to create different angles that would interest different customers based on their need and the value that they'd see in the service.
Absolutely. And you touched on something that we haven't really talked a ton about on the podcast or on previous episodes as much. And that is, being honest with your customers. We have talked about, being fully transparent, being authentic and whatnot, but I think a lot of people and a lot of reasons guys don't even get into sales in the first place is because they're shady.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to lie to a customer to get a deal. And we've also seen it time and time again too.
For sure.
Where it's not even like a little like a big lie that they're saying. It's like maybe just like a little twist on the truth. Maybe just like a little lie of little omissions here and there. But like why? Because you mentioned like you pride yourself on like I'm honest with my customers.
Yeah.
Like, is there what's kind of the story behind that? Was that something you previously struggled with, or like why is that something you value so much?
I just think it's something that's important to me as a human, right? Just integrity. And John Taylor, he's one of the owners at the Grit. He always says it. He says, if you don't have integrity, I don't care what you have, right? And I think just in life, I'm a big believer in like the energy you put out is what comes back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what goes around comes around. And I think being an honest person is just something that is really, really important just in general, especially in business, right? And I think what goes around comes around. And hopefully if I'm honest, you know, that good karma will come my way.
I love that. And like, you know, it's, you know, law of reciprocity, whatever you, and karma, like whatever you put out will come back to you. So I want to kind of speak to the specifics. What are things that you see in the industry as a whole that people could improve on as far as honesty?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so easy. And it's just so like bang bang in a sales situation, right? Like the customer asks a question that, you know, you can tell they're on the fence, and they ask a question that maybe if you answer in the way that they want to hear, then you're going to close the deal, right? Maybe it's like, oh, is this going to take care of, let's say, like all the ants like down by the mailbox? Just something like where maybe like the treatment isn't happening like by the mailbox every time, right? Maybe you are going to do that on the first one, but in reality, like the ants probably are going to come back by the mailbox. Maybe they're not going to see them in the house or even like within like 10 feet of the house, but they're still going to come back from the mailbox. And you just say, yeah, of course, you're never going to see ants anywhere if you do like call us back, right? They call the office for a reservice because they have like the ant hills down by the curb or the mailbox, and you know, they find out that it's not like part of the treatment. Where like in my mind, if you tell the customer what the reality is, they're actually going to respect you way more, and they're going to like feel that honesty. So my answer to that question would be like, to be honest, like that's not a targeted area where we treat. So it might help. You'll probably still see some ants down by the mailbox realistically, but ultimately like what we want is for those guys to not be like nesting, breeding, and colonizing like up close to the home. That way you never have those ants like in the garage or like in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right. And it's totally about how you say it. Like you can make it a win regardless. I think it's just such like a bang bang decision. And obviously like there's way more questions that are asked. Is it a contract? Is there a cancellation fee? That I think are more like grievous than, you know, the ants by the mailbox example, right? And ultimately it's not like a huge deal at the end of the day. It's like just pest control, but I think it's just a decision you make going into the summer. Like, am I going to answer the questions honestly? Like when it comes to those moments where I'm so desperate for a sale, it's, you know, it's 4:00 and I'm at 0 and I need some bandwagon going. And the customer asks if there's a cancellation fee. And I just tell them no, because I'm just like so desperate for a sale. That's so much easier, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's where it just gets hard. And ultimately it just comes to like what you value most.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, people really respect like the straightforward, honest answer.
Yeah.
And what's fun too, you can even throw a little bit of humor in it.
Oh yeah.
Like, what's the cancellation fee? That's about 10 grand.
Oh yeah.
No, just kidding.
Maximizing
It's
and
X amount.
minimizing. Yeah, you maximize and minimize. How long is the contract? It's just 18 years. No, I'm just kidding, man. It's just 18 months.
How long's your mortgage? About as long as that. No, just kidding.
Yeah, we'll put a lien on your house if you cancel. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I will send you. We'll repossess your car, all that.
Yeah, it's huge sales skill, right? Like building rapport, and hopefully you've built enough rapport with the customer by then that if you do have to answer in a question that might not be like the most ideal for a customer, like a cancellation fee, a contract, or whatever, that, you know, they're able to trust you and understand like where you're coming from.
Yeah, because oftentimes too, it's not just like the straight up like lies or anything like that. It's what kind of like, you could be telling the truth, but because you're leaving certain things out, you're misrepresenting what actually the case could be. So like, for example, maybe they say like, oh, like, is this a contract? And you'd be like, people need to cancel, or like, is this a contract and can I cancel? Like, oh yeah, people need to cancel all the time. Just call the company and they'll handle it.
Yeah, you can cancel.
It's like, yeah,
that's not what they were asking.
Was it honest? Yes,
Yeah.
technically, but you left out. There's a big cancellation fee if you cancel.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that customer might down the road get to the point where they need to cancel, and they probably didn't even care. They just were curious because they're moving or something.
Yeah.
And then they call the company because they're like, oh, well, I'll just cancel. And then they're like, you have this big fee. And then they feel extremely misled
Yeah.
in that scenario.
100%.
So it's like, tackling the truth head on, not omitting anything, just being bold with it. And people respect it, like we said.
Yeah. And one thing I like, just to close on this thought, to the industry, like, please be honest. It does no good for the rest of the industry when door-to-door salesmen are dishonest. Like, the amount of times I've knocked into someone and they slam the door on me, or I start pitching them and they interrupt me and they're like, I'm never doing business door-to-door. I'm like, oh, like, what happened? And it's always dishonesty, right? It's like, that's not a good look for the industry, and no one wants to be seen as like a scammer, right? Like, that's like the worst feeling, is like when you're put on the Facebook page and it's like, caution, like, don't answer the door, dude on Segway. Like, yeah, just be honest. It's a win for everyone. You think it's a temporary like win, or you think it's a win for yourself, but ultimately it's not, and it's a huge L for the industry in general.
It's a lose-lose
for your future
all
stuff,
across the board.
100%.
Yeah, maybe you do get that commission, and maybe they don't call and cancel. Like, maybe you get away with it, but like in the end, like, no one actually does get away with dishonesty in the industry.
Yeah, it's a no.
So thank you for speaking to that. I feel like it's very important. It's unfortunately kind of under talked about a little bit. And so now kind of shifting gears back into kind of the nuances of Grand Rapids, Michigan summer 2023.
Yeah.
So you're getting, some saturation. What was the number one objection that you got out there?
I think Midwesterners are, slower to make a decision. I feel like back east, it's a little bit more like, yeah, they're quick, right? They're like, cool, I want it. Midwesterners are like, yeah, let me think about it. Let me get a card. Yeah, I would say that's for sure the biggest one. Let me get a card.
Okay. How do you overcome that?
Redirect. Yeah, I just don't do cards. I'm out here with my truck, right? And you're just creating urgency from there. Ultimately, it's like, no one wants to be the flyer guy. You're never going to make money being a flyer guy. And same thing, like back to the honesty thing, I tell people how it is. Yeah, dude, like, I'm not the flyer guy. The reason I'm out here is ultimately to earn your business. The reason like these guys have been liking it, and I'm just back into the pitch.
Yeah, I love that. And I do kind of want to rant about that real quick. Nothing is worse than working a 12-hour day for free.
Yeah, no one wants to do that.
Being the flyer guy for free. No one wants to do that. That was, I've had a couple bagel days in my past, but yeah, just going home and being like, wow, I worked for free today. I was in the hot sun for free today.
Yeah.
Never again.
And what's even worse than that is when you give someone like a flyer or some kind of card, and then you go and look at that area, like a few weeks later, and you see a star on that customer's house because they signed up with the office instead of you. It's like, dude, you were literally a flyer guy.
Yeah.
Like, be a closer.
Be a closer, exactly. And so now kind of shifting into closing then. So, it sounds like you're a big redirect guy. You know who you are. You're the closer. You're there to do a deal the same day. What are you doing with the guy that is just totally on the fence? No matter what you're telling him, he's just like, oh man, like I just need time. Like I just can't do this right now.
Yeah, I think the ultimate, it ultimately comes down to just making it make sense for him, right? And there's things that you have to do before the close to make it like make sense when you do close, right? So like during the service, if you haven't built enough value, maybe you're gonna have to go back and loop on that, right? If you haven't created a big enough need or a big enough pain point for that customer, you'll have to loop back into that before you go back and close. Like, I don't think many people will be pushed off the fence by just closing and closing and closing again, right? And then also at the Grit, we talk a ton about being a business person and not a sales person, right? So what that kind of looks like is, rather than just asking for the deal, you're helping the customer understand why you're there now and why like the business for you now is a huge win, right? And you're also telling them that, like, before you go and ace, and give some kind of price concession or an add-on or whatever it is, you're asking them to do something for you as well. So it seems way more like a business transaction. Because if you're just like dropping price, it's just gonna seem desperate, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone says this, like, you don't want to sound like a used car salesman, right? So if someone's giving me same objection, they're on the fence, right? What I'm gonna do first is figure out kind of like if there's a lack of value, right? Or if it's kind of more like a price thing. And sometimes I'll ask it. Sometimes I can tell by their objection, right? I'm going to loop on whatever is needed, and then I'm going to help them understand why I'm there today. It's like, dude, I totally get it. Biggest thing, like, my trucks are here today. If you were to call us out later, it just costs us way more time, gas, right? I'm sure that makes sense. It's just going to cost you full price. While I'm here today, like, and we're doing the neighbors, right? We're just knocking everyone out. It'd be way worth it for me to earn your business. Just promise me, like, you'll leave me a good review after we do a good job. I'll even do it for this, right? And it's like, you're asking for the review. Like, if I do this for you, I'll do this for you. If you do this for me, I'll do this for you.
So that way it's a give and take as well.
Exactly.
It's not just like I'm going to twist your arm until you buy. It's like hey, like, here's the reason I'm out here today. You get that, and then I'm going to need something from you.
Yeah.
If we make this happen today. So that way, I love that. I think that's a brilliant way to do it. How often are you having to, like, re-loop and, like, re-close?
Like, how many customers aren't laydowns?
Yeah. Well reworded there.
Yeah, I would say, like, there's guys at the Grit who are really, really good at building value and twisting, and they don't. I would say I am not quite as good at that yet, and every time I'm, for the most part, looping and closing a couple times. And most of the guys at the Grit,
which isn't a bad thing, by the way. Like, that's what you get paid to do.
Yeah, 100%. Most of the guys at the Grit had contract values. Like, our average contract value this year was 1,040. Most of the Golden Doors did less than 650 accounts because their contract value was above 1,000 accounts, right? So my contract value was like 886, and I sold 735 accounts. That goes to show, like, what's happening, like, at the end of my pitch is I'm doing a lot more negotiation than, like, a Zach Seeger who's selling at, like, a $1,200 contract value, right? He's getting a lot of people on the first and second close is where he makes most of his sales, where I'm getting people more on, like, the fourth.
Yeah, but still, like, a lot of guys are giving up after, like, the first or second time.
Yeah, you don't give up. Yeah, for sure, you don't give up. Yeah, I'm going as many rounds as the customer is going to let me. If it's someone who's just standing there and they're not closing the door on me, I'm just going until they do.
At what point do you walk away?
When I have nothing else to offer. But when you want it bad enough, it's like my goal to do a Golden Door was do or die. Like, there was no plan B, and I was doing everything I could. And it's like Grit gets shade for it, but dude, I'll pay an initial. Like, I'll cover their first one. And I know, like, Vivint guys would do the same thing, right?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Like $100, like a incentive, some kind of incentive.
Yeah,
right?
we used to cover first months all the time.
Yeah, it's like, dude, and I sold for Greenix, which was monthly billing rather than per treatment. And it's like, dude, I'll cover your first month. I'll cover your first 2 months. Right? Ultimately, as long as it makes sense, like, coming out on, like, the flip side with commissions and everything, even if I'm breaking even, I'm willing to do it because
you're getting momentum.
Yeah, momentum is everything in sales. Bandwagon, and ultimately, like, revenue towards the goal, which is the most important thing for me. It's literally do or die. So yeah, I'm going until it literally, like, makes no sense financially. yeah, and like the person is just giving me the hardest time, and they're just ultimately not gonna say yes.
Yeah. And that level of persistence is very uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
It's just practice, just like anything. Like getting out of your comfort zones, 100% practice. The more you do it, the more comfortable you are with it. I think a lot of it has to do with the work at the beginning of the pitch, though, as well, like building rapport. I'm not just sitting there just bulldogging these people, right? It's
Yeah.
like I'm laughing with these people. I'm
You
like,
have to, yeah.
I'm like, dude, like you obviously like don't want to get out there and like spray the raid with these like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
and we're like laughing, he's like, yeah, dude, like I get it. Like and they're always like, dude, like I get the hustle, right? It's like those guys. And ultimately
People respect it.
yeah, people respect it. And I think that's a big thing. You can tell also the longer you sell, you get like kind of a sixth sense for the people who are okay with that, like with you pushing them. And you get that feeling for when people aren't, and that's just kind of is kind of just a judgment call you have to make as well.
Yeah, so for the people that you feel like aren't quite okay with it, is that kind of the people you're walking away from?
Yeah.
Or like you just take a different approach? Okay.
Yeah, like if I can just tell they're not having it, I'm not gonna waste my time.
That's fair.
I'll throw like a Hail Mary,
Mm-hmm.
just to see if I can get them to bite. Like if there is value for them, and I've gotten some bug confessions, and I've done the work, and I've made them feel that there's a need, and I see that, I'll throw like a Hail Mary to see if they bite, and then try to open up that door again. But if that Hail Mary doesn't land, then I'm on to the next.
That's fair. Yeah. So what are you going to say to the guy that maybe he comes to you, he's seeking advice, he maybe can only go 1 or 2 rounds in the closing situation, in the closing table, because he's just like, well, I just don't have anything to say after that. After I go a couple times, like I'll maybe drop the price a couple times, but it's not really working. Like I'm just running out of things to say.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, listen to some voice recordings. Like I would kind of analyze where they're going wrong in the pitch. There's a lot of places where it could go wrong, right? It could be just not building enough value, because it is really hard to go the rounds if you don't have any ammo, right? So if you don't have anything, if you haven't given me anything to work with, then I don't have anything to build value on, and I don't have anything to really go the rounds on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like it's never the step you're struggling with. It's always the step before
Yeah,
that you're struggling with. If you're struggling closing, you're probably giving really piss poor presentations.
exactly. Yeah, so that's a huge thing. And then if you are getting the ammo, and then like they just need to like do their research or whatever it is, right? Then it's just about, just wanting it more than the customer, right? It comes down to that tug of war, and just being willing to go the rounds. If you're not willing to go the rounds, you're just selling yourself short of so many sales, and it is uncomfortable at first. You practice, you do it, you get out of your comfort zone. The good thing is you grow, right?
Yeah.
You learn, you get better, you get more sales, and yeah, there's just so many benefits to just doing it.
Yeah. And I love that principle. Like, and when push comes to shove, it's just like whoever kind of lasts the longest.
Yeah.
It's going to be the last man standing
100%.
principle. You could be brand new at sales and apply that principle, and you'll probably do a lot better than 90% of other rookies that start out, or 90% of other guys that are in it. I remember my second year, we had a guy that came in on our team he was from Queens.
Yeah.
And he's just this like this nerdy kid. I love him to death, but he just was this socially awkward kid. But like he didn't have that like, activate within him during the sales process. So he'd literally just sit in people's living rooms until they bought.
Yeah.
Just
Sometimes
because
you got to turn off your social cues.
and until they either bought or they like physically were like, okay, hey, like you really need to leave. Like
Yeah.
it's time.
Yeah.
Like you're done. Which like, we're not saying like you have to do that every time. Like, like you said, you kind of develop the sense of like, okay, this person's like needs the push
Yeah.
and they're okay with it. And then you'll get the people that are like, I'm going to waste my time if I stay here. So it's just a matter of practice, just a matter of being there and then just being willing to be uncomfortable.
Yep.
So, and now kind of going in, so your summer progression, did you start off hot and then just keep that momentum going, or what was kind of the story with that?
Yeah, I would say my summer was really consistent. And I think that's one of the biggest things that comes down to doing a Golden Door is consistency. Anyone can do it for a day. Anyone
Anyone can do it for
you know, can have intensity, but not everyone can have consistency. And yeah, I was really consistent. It's actually funny. I came out like kind of hot. I didn't do anything too crazy. I did like 30K in my first week, like just on I think like 29K, and that was kind of my average. In June, I actually didn't have a day over 7, and I only had 3 7 days. But that just goes to show how many bad days I didn't have, right? It's like I wasn't selling below like 3 or 4 very often. I was just right kind of in that sweet spot, like 4, 5, 6. I think my average, so I sold for 120 days. I had 120 knocking days. I think I averaged about 6 sales a day. But in June, I literally didn't have a day over 7. Granted, in September, so I finished September 16th, I didn't have, I think I only had like 1 or 2 days under 6K in September. So I finished really strong. I did like 32K, 35K, like 31K, like to finish. So
Yeah.
in September, and before, like I finished on the 16th, so 14 knocking days or whatever it is, I did like 90K or whatever to finish off. So yeah, we believe in the ramp. My biggest day, I had like a 17 day, but that was super like abnormal. I only had like maybe 2 or 3 10K days. Nothing crazy. Like you see a lot of the guys at the Grit, like we're really big with our Instagram account and our branding, and you constantly see like the 10K days, the 12K days. And that was a huge mind shift as well, as like I didn't realize that you could do a Golden Door without selling 60 a week, right? Like I thought that you had to be constantly ripping just because that's what I saw from those guys. I didn't see like the 1 and 2 days. So a huge breakthrough was for me was Bennett Heron. He's another Golden Door winner at the Grit, and a previous Golden Door summer, he had a whiteboard with every single day and how many he sold on that day. And he was doing a golden training this last off season, and he posted that whiteboard, and I saw a lot of ones and twos. And I was like, oh wow. So this guy like did a Golden Door and he still had like 1 and 2 days. And granted, he had like a few really big days, but ultimately it just made me realize that it was way more of a consistency thing, way more of a marathon than a sprint, than just being able to go out and sell, 10, being able to sell 60, 70 a week. It just put things into perspective for me that made me believe that I could do it and I could pace for it.
Yeah, literally the principle of consistency over intensity is it's often talked about, but often truly overlooked.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, we've all seen that meme on Instagram that's just like, which is better? And it has the big fire emoji, and then it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller with like the days that go on.
Yeah.
And then we've seen it's like the same size fire, but it's there every day.
Yeah.
And those little days add up. Just as long as your consistency
Exactly.
is spot on and like, because it adds up.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you may be doing only like 3 to 5 a day, but you do that every day for 120 days.
Exactly.
That's a lot of accounts.
And the thing is like the big days are the easy days, right? Like when you're rolling, when you get out, you sell like one of your first doors, and then you have a bandwagon, and it's just one of those days where the deals are coming for whatever reason. Those days are really easy. The hard days are when you get out there and like you're just struggling to get anything going.
Yeah.
Right. And it's 5 p.m. and you're at 0, and you know that you still have to sell 4 at least, or you still have to sell 6 to hit your goal that week. It's turning those days into decent days. That is the hardest part about being consistent, because those days are the easiest to go sit in your car, to go to the
Yep.
gas station, to, call your family, call your wife, whatever it is, call your friend that's, having fun at home. Like those are the days where it's really hard. That I think are the biggest difference makers in a big summer.
Absolutely. And dude, this has been nothing but like fountains of wisdom. We could go on for hours with
sure.
just these principles, but I wanted to shift gears before we let you go over to D2D Con. Is this going to be your first D2D Con?
Yeah, this will be my first. I've never been.
Oh man,
Super excited.
What's your expectation? How do you feel? Like, what do you think?
Oh, dude, I just can't wait to, be up on that stage. I did a lot of priming. That's a big thing at the Grid as well, is we do a lot of like affirmations, a lot of like self-belief. There's a Tony Robbins YouTube video where he walks you through like imagining yourself like living the goal that you have in mind, like as it's already happened or it's happening. And yeah, I've primed quite a bit, and I always imagine myself like on stage getting the Golden Door Award. So it's like, I'm so excited for that moment because I've already lived it so many times, like in my mind. I'm just excited for like the real thing and to have that feeling of accomplishment, shake Sam Tiger's hand.
Yeah.
The whole night. It'll be fun.
Dude, we're beyond excited to welcome you to the stage. And like me personally, I'm excited to just hang out with you guys. It's fun making friends with you all.
Yeah.
Definitely like some sort of like secret Golden Door party is totally going to happen.
Oh yeah, let's go.
Off the record. But yeah, it's going to be really fun. So we're excited to have you. January 25th through the 27th, guys. Come hang out. Come be with Golden Door winners. I mean, that's the thing. That's where all the Golden Door winners are going to be, is at D2D Con. So no better place to level up and to surround yourself with greatness than D2D Con. So
100%. Surround yourself with the people that like have done what you want to do.
Exactly. So any parting words to the industry before we let you go, man?
I would just say, like, when you have a goal, there's different ways to approach it. And I heard this on another podcast during the summer, and it totally changed my perspective, and I think it will forever. When asked the question, if you flip a coin 10 times, what are the odds that it lands on the same side each time? There's two different answers, right? One person will answer it. They'll calculate their calculator, and they'll do 1/2 to the 10th power, and it's a really, really small number. The odds are really low. And then the other person will say 100%. And the reason why is because they're willing to flip the coin as many times as it takes until they get the result that they want. And that's ultimately like, I think a big difference maker in anyone who is dead set on hitting their goal and not. They're willing to just do anything. They're willing to do whatever they have to do as many times as it takes until they hit it.
Love it, man. Love it. So, Jake Shear, this has been the Golden Door Deep Dive Podcast, everyone. Keep tuning in every week. These are going to be dropping hopefully bi-weekly. So, nothing but pure wisdom and knowledge from these Golden Door winners. So, keep tuning in, and we'll see you at D2D Con this January.